Hello, thank you for stopping on my video. My name is Becky and this is BecxReadz. I post videos every 5 days, and if I can manage, I will squeeze some in between, and today is the start of a reading vlog. Before we get started, if you could hit that subscribe button for me down below, it would really help my channel grow, and I would love for you to be here with me. I have 3 arcs that I need to get read this month, so I thought, why not just make this an arc reading vlog? Up first, I will be reading Immortality, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This is the sequel to Anatomy, a Love Story, which was one of my favorite books from last year. I will leave my 6-star in-depth review link down below if you want to go check that out. So I am excited to get into this one. I have already started it, but I'm only about 15% into it. All I could say so far is not a lot has really happened. We're just following Hazel as she is now a doctor in Edinburgh, sort of helping the poorer people in the city. I will get back to you once I've made progress on it. I am going to get my hair cut today. My hair is now down to about my boobs, and it's about 3.5 years of growth. So I'm gonna go get it cut off, and I'm gonna donate it to a charity called Children with Hair Loss that makes wigs for children. It'll be the 3rd time that I've donated my hair to this organization, and I really like them because they don't make people pay for their wigs. I will have their website linked down below if you want to go check them out. I might take you along with me. Who knows? The next clip you see, I might have shorter hair. Hello. Hi. My hair is all gone. Update time. I am now 57% into Immortality, a Love Story, and I'm very bored. Like, nothing from the first book that like hooked me and kept my attention is there. So at this point, 50% in, 57% in, take that back. Hazel she's been working as a surgeon in Edinburgh helping the poor, and one day this woman comes to her and she took some medicine to have an abortion, and so she's in a bad way, and so Hazel helps heal her. And then somehow somebody finds out about that, and Hazel is accused of murdering the baby. So she's sent to prison, where she doesn't really think she'll escape. She tries to send word to her parents, and nothing comes of it, until one day somebody arrives at the prison to take her to London, where she is supposed to help Princess Charlotte, who is very ill and nobody can figure out what's wrong with her. And so they want Hazel to go and see if they can figure out what's wrong with her. It's sort of like a last-ditch effort to figure out what's wrong with this princess. So she goes to London. She tries to get to know this princess. The princess really isn't like wanting her to examine her or anything like that, and lo and behold, she ends up figuring out what's wrong with this princess. I won't say that because I could say it. It's my spoiler vlog. I could say it, but I won't. But she finds out what's wrong with her, and then that storyline sort of ended. And now she's delving into like this secret society of people who are immortal and took the tonic that the evil doctor from the first book used. Meanwhile, she's still wondering, is Jack alive? Is he not alive? Because he took the tonic at the end of the last book, right before he got hanged. And she's wondering if he's alive. Why hasn't he tried to contact me? But maybe he could be dead. Meanwhile, she's sort of finding herself attracted to this other doctor who she's working with closely. And that's where we are. So just not a lot happening. I want the morbid stuff. I want to see dissections, and I want to see her like in graveyards and things like that, and I'm just not getting it from this one, and so I'm really bored. But I'm gonna push through to the end because I am 57% of the way. I'm still wondering, is Jack gonna show up in this story? Because he hasn't, and even if he doesn't, like, I would like to see her relationship progress with this new doctor and her to like get over Jack, because quite frankly, her and Jack's relationship from the first book was really instantaneous and puppy love. So I don't know why she's so hung up on Jack. Maybe it's just because it was the first guy to ever really understand her and let her be herself. I don't know. But he either needs to come back into the picture or she needs to move forward with this new guy. I'm now at 75% into this book, and Jack finally made his appearance. He is in fact alive and immortal. He attended a party where Hazel was, and they saw each other across the room. She's introduced him to this secret society of other immortal people, thinking that that would give him more purpose, and he's trying to tell her to move on with her life because there's no future for them together if he's immortal and she's human, and he doesn't really have a lot to offer her. So he's trying to get her to understand that, and she's not having it. She wants to be with him for some strange reason. I guess it's love. It's love. So that is where we are at now. Still not a lot happening. I'm glad he's back in the picture, but like something needs to happen. Like, I have a feeling maybe the secret society is gonna be into some sketchy stuff or something, and maybe that will bring the drama to the story, because there really hasn't been much drama except for in the beginning when she was accused of murdering the woman's baby that she aborted. That was like the most drama I've gotten in this book, but I'm glad to see that Jack's back and I can finally, you know, realize that he is in fact alive. But yeah, that's about it. I'll check back in with you probably tomorrow when I finish this book, because I don't think I'll have any more updates until then. I finished Immortality, a Love Story, and this was quite the disappointment. Anatomy, a Love Story was one of my favorite books of last year. It got 6 stars for me. I loved it. There were things about it that were not great, but I had such a good time reading that book, and it hooked me, and it kept me hooked so much, and I enjoyed the uniqueness of it so much that I overlooked all the things that were wrong with it. And then I get to this book, and I was expecting it to sort of pick up right where Anatomy left off, and I was expecting Hazel and Jack's relationship to be developed and explored a little bit more, and I didn't get that. The morbid curiosity that I loved from the first book is nowhere in this. We just sort of gloss over her doing examinations and studying body parts and things like that. We don't get like in-depth detail about it. The gothic nature of this story completely gone. We go from Edinburgh to London, and it becomes much more of this like young adult Bridgerton-esque society drama thing, which I didn't love. I usually don't love dark academia because I hate school settings, and that's what I loved about this one, is that it wasn't in a school setting. It was just Hazel trying to learn about anatomy through her own means to better her education. We don't even get to see her really study in this one. It's like she already knows everything she needs to know. She's trying to write this book to like diagram all of her anecdotes and things like that. But it's like she already knows everything. We don't really get to explore her learning that or anything. Also, Jack, he doesn't show up till like 65% into this book, which is a real disappointment because that's how long it took him to show up in the first book. These titles, and this was one complaint I had about the first one despite me giving it 6 stars, is they're called a love story. And there's not much romance in these books. In Anatomy, the relationship between Hazel and Jack really didn't kick in until the last third of the book. And I was expecting to go into Immortality, and I was expecting to see that relationship develop because I thought it was a very quick and instantaneous, those are pretty much synonyms, Becky, but it was very quick, and it wasn't a very detailed love development. Like, I didn't really get to know Jack all that well, so I was hoping that in this book I would get to know him well and I would feel that chemistry between them. And again, it took almost 60% in, 65% in, to even get to Jack showing up into the story. And then when he does, sometimes he's there and then it'll go a few chapters where he won't be and then he'll show up again. So it's not like I even get a third of the book at the end of this with him in it. It's like
maybe the last 10% he's in it as a love interest. And how am I, as a reader, supposed to believe that this is a love story for the ages? She's only 18, he's probably a little bit older than her, but they haven't been together long enough for me to feel that longing, that connection, that chemistry. I still don't feel like I even know much about Jack. Another thing I didn't love about this was it fell into that trope of introducing a second love interest in the second book. And I would have loved if Hazel would have explored that relationship with Simon more, because he felt like a much better fit for her than Jack ever did. Jack is just this poor, good-looking guy who has nothing to offer Hazel. Whereas Simon is this, like, a little bit older than her, established, rich, smart man who has things in common with her. And so I feel like her exploring that relationship with Simon would have made more sense. I also felt like I got to know Simon and his backstory a hell of a lot more than I got to know Jack. But for some reason, this girl is just dead set in love with Jack. For some reason. I don't understand. But it doesn't go anywhere. It's just like, oh, we're going to introduce this love interest as maybe a possibility. But once Jack comes back into the story, you know that she's not going to do anything with this Simon person. She's going to go straight back to Jack. So that was another plot that just got tossed aside. This book suffered from too many plots. I would have loved if this book would have focused on her time in prison and how she survives that and escapes that and what that was like. That would have given me more of those gothic, tension-filled storyline that I loved from the first book. But no, she's there and then that plot line is done. And then she goes to London to help this sick princess. And as soon as she figures out what's wrong with this princess, that plot line is pretty much done. And then she meets this secret society of immortal people. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is going to go somewhere. And it really doesn't. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's over so quick. I didn't connect to any of those characters because I briefly got to meet any of them. I didn't care about their backstories. I didn't care about their, like, villainous plot or anything like that. I just didn't care. And then we get this LGBT plus plotline, romance thing, that just came out of nowhere. Like, Hazel as a character, she didn't even see it coming. And so I, as a reader, didn't see it coming. And it didn't feel very organically included into the story, because what was the point of that? Because I didn't get to feel the chemistry between this couple. I didn't really see any sort of romantic interactions between this couple. I didn't get a sense that this couple's relationship was important to the story at all. So it just being thrown in there at, like, the last second as another plot for Hazel to figure out how to deal with did not seem very organic to the story, and it pissed me off. If that was where this story was going, then that couple should have been a focal point. Their romance, their tension, their sweet moments, their chemistry building. I should have seen that as a reader. I should have felt that. And instead it's just like, oh, here, LGBT plus rep right here. Yep. Okay, now you're supposed to believe that this couple is important to the story, that their chemistry is genuine, that they're going to give up everything for this reason. And I didn't, because it was nowhere in the story until it was. And then all of a sudden I'm supposed to care? No. The first book I felt was so unique. We focused on Hazel's intelligence and her wanting to become this physician in a time when it wasn't acceptable for a woman to be a physician. And it got lost in this book, because instead of focusing on Hazel's intelligence and her drive to do something great and become something great, we instead go to, like, court politics and discussing the dresses that she's gonna wear and the fabric it's made of and who she's gonna dance with at the balls. And her wanting to be a physician and healing people is just sort of shoved to the side. She could still do so much with that. But it's like, oh, well, we got what we accomplished, so now let's focus on this other crap that I personally did not care about. I'm like, I don't care about what dress she's going to wear to the ball. I don't care about who she's going to dance with. This romance with Simon isn't going to go anywhere. So what's the point? I ended up giving this a very, very low 3-star rating. It could have gotten a 2.5, to be quite honest, but I felt like because I read it rather quickly, because I had an established relationship with these characters, I did like the historical influences that the author included in this story, and I liked Simon's character. I thought he was a very great character, and I would have loved to see him and Hazel in a relationship because he just made sense. I loved his character. But aside from that, everything I loved about the first book just totally went down the drain. So moving on to the next book in this reading vlog, I will be starting Cards of Fate, Fate of Cards. I still don't know which order that title goes in. I know nothing about this book. This is a book that I requested off Netgalley because of the cover, and I think it's a fantasy romance. Whether it's young adult, I don't know. I literally know nothing about this other than the cover. So I'm gonna get into this, and hopefully I enjoy it. I've reached about 21% into this book. It is called Cards of Fate. I now know the title for sure. So this is a fantasy romance. I'm still not sure if it's young adult or adult because the characters feel very young adult. They're reading very like 17, 18-year-olds. But they use words that lend to an adult fantasy romance. We are following Morgana, who is a witch, and she lives in this place where witches are burned at the stake. Pretty much anybody, if they have magic, they are killed. So the only two people who know that she is a witch is the princess of this kingdom and the princess's fiance, who is a cursed man himself. And Morgana has been in love with the captain of the princess's royal guard for years. And he has been in love with her. He's constantly asking her, will you marry me? But she keeps denying him because he doesn't know she's a witch. And she doesn't want him to have to choose between being a captain of the guard and sort of killing off people with magic in this kingdom or protecting her, because this has been something that he's worked for and she doesn't want him to have to choose between those. So she just keeps putting him off and telling him once she becomes queen, ask me again. So they're on this journey somewhere and their caravan gets attacked and this demon lord ends up stealing the princess. And so Morgana, the guard of the night, who I think his name is Leo. I think it's Leopold and it's short, Leo short. And the princess's fiance all set out to try and sort of take her back. And in doing so, Leopold ends up finding out that Morgana is a witch at this point. And she has used up all of her magic reserves, so she is pretty much comatose and she needs to rest and recuperate in order to build up her supply. So that is where I have left off. It's not at all what I thought this book was going to be, quite honestly. I didn't know there were going to be witches in this story, which I actually like. I also do like the relationship between Morgana and Leopold. It's a friends to lovers, and that's my favorite trope. However, the writing of this book is not the best. I don't feel the chemistry between these characters, and it's sad because I want to. I want to feel that chemistry. Like, I can see that it's there, I just don't feel it, you know? So I would say that the writing isn't the best. And the story overall so far, I was pretty much just thrown into this world, and it just started throwing names and places at me, and I'm like, there's a king? Who's this king? This, where, what, huh, who, what? I didn't know what was happening. I'm liking it so far. I don't see it being a DNF for me, because I do like the dynamic of these characters and I like the story. It's just, it's not something that I see being like a really high rated one because of the writing. But that's that. That's the update I have on this so far, and once I get a little bit further into it, I will give you another update. I am 57% into this book, and I'm still liking it, but the plot is very thin. Like, the only real plot of this story is they are trying to reach the Demon King's realm to save this princess. So it's very much a journey trope, which I actually like. And we're just spending more time with these characters as Morgana and Leo try and figure out their attraction to one another and what they want from a relationship together. That's pretty much the gist of this story. I am enjoying their relationship. They finally got to their first smut scene. Hallelujah. I like all the different like creatures that are in this story. We have witches, we have trolls, we have Baba Yaga in this story. We have like skinwalkers and demons. There's a lot of creatures involved in this story that are sort of barriers on this journey to get to this demon realm to save this princess. I anticipate getting this done maybe tonight, probably tomorrow. I don't know. I have some stuff I have to do today, so that might cut into my reading time. But I'm going to try and get it finished, and once I do, I will give you an update on it. So, see that I just took off the wig, and the mail person dropped off a package for me. My sister and my parents sent me 2 books for Valentine's Day, so I thought I would share them with you to add more extra to this reading vlog, because it doesn't quite have much to it other than me talking about books, and I do like vlogs that include other things other than just reading updates. So the first book they sent me was A Court of Honey and Ash. I've heard really good things about this fantasy romance, but I haven't ever picked it up, so I don't know anything about it, but the chapter headings are very nicely designed. And then the other thing they sent me was The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuzner, who wrote one of my favorite books from last year over here. It was Midnight Neverwood, and this is her middle grade series. And I believe it has something to do with pirates. And y'all know, I do like my piratey adventures. So I love this cover, how it opens, and there's like a step back to it. Isn't that cute? And I think it's also illustrated. I think just the chapter headings have illustrations, but it's super cute. So I can't wait to read that. I did like Maria Kuzner's adult fantasy, so hopefully I enjoy this one. So thank you, sister parents, for the Valentine's gift. I started out enjoying the concept of this book. It wasn't exactly anything like I thought it was going to be. I liked the witchy characters. I really liked the witch and the captain of the guard romance. It was also friends to love, which is my favorite trope. So I really loved that. I also enjoyed the journey trope, and this world has all sorts of like magical creatures in it that are sort of roadblocks as this trio makes their way to this demon king's territory to save the princess. However, about the 3rd time they encounter a different creature in a different area on this journey, it got really repetitive. It would be, they would encounter a creature, Leopold would get hurt trying to slay the creature, Morgana would come in, save him. She would then question, is he gonna stay with me? Does he really love me? He would reassure her, I'm gonna stay with you, and they would have sex. And then proceed down the road a little bit, and the same thing would happen, and then the same thing would happen, and then the same thing would happen. So it just got very tiring to read the same things with just different creatures along the way, and around like the 80% mark, I started skim reading a lot because it was just the same thing, one thing after another after another. The writing of the story never really got better for me either. I really didn't feel a lot of chemistry between the characters, despite me wanting to. I really wanted to feel the chemistry because I love the witch and the captain of the guard romance, and I thought that would be a really cool dynamic. Unfortunately, it never got there. The ending of this book was really rushed, and we spend this entire book on this journey to get to this demon king's territory to save this princess. And that is about 5% of the last bit of this book. I did like the twist at the end. I didn't see that coming. I thought that was an interesting twist. It needed to be longer. And it just didn't feel like a very satisfying conclusion because it was rather easy to defeat the bad guy, and it didn't take very long, and there were no consequences because at that time you realize that every creature they encounter, Leopold's gonna get hurt and Morgana's gonna save him. Another thing that really didn't give this a high rating was this title is called Cards of Fate. So I went into this thinking that tarot cards were gonna play a really big role in this story, which I really enjoy that concept. And they do play a part to an extent. Each person within this world is given a soul card, which is supposed to match up with another soul card so that they're almost like soulmates. And that's about it. That's the extent of what tarot cards play in this story. So I did like some aspects of it, and at one point this was a 3.5 star read for me. However, it lowered down to a 3-star once it became so repetitive that I couldn't enjoy it. Now on to the third and final book of this reading vlog. I will be reading Symphony for a Deadly Throne. This is book 3 in the Musai series by E.J. Mello. I really enjoyed the first 2 books in this series. It is a series that revolves around 3 sisters who have magical abilities. In the first book, the sister had the magical ability with her voice. She could compel people whenever she talked or sang. In the second book, the sister has the ability to compel people through movement and dance. And in this one, we are following the oldest sister, Arabessa, and she has the ability to compel people through playing music. So hers is probably the least easily accessible magic because she does have to have like some sort of instrument at her disposal to compel people. But I do think this probably has a friends to lovers romance, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully I can get into this friends and lovers more than I got into the last one. But I'm excited to read it. I am hoping that this is a good conclusion to this series. Let's get going, and I will update you on my thoughts once I am further into it. 20% in, we are following Arabessa, who is the oldest of the sisters. Like I mentioned, she has the power to manipulate people through musical instruments. And she has had a friendship with this young man named Zimri, I think his name is. And he is somebody with magical abilities as well. He is able to sense the emotions of people. I don't know if he can manipulate them, but he can sense the emotions of people. So the Thief King, who happens to be Arabessa's father, he uses him to like sense the intentions of people within his kingdom. And these two have grown up together, so they have built this relationship and this bond, and he is in love with her and she is in love with him, and they've had a sexual relationship together. But Zimri is at the point where he needs more from Arabessa, and Arabessa is this very closed off person. She doesn't like to give too much of herself. And at this point, she has discovered a secret about her mother. Her mother was actually the ruler of the Thief Kingdom before her father, and nobody knew this. So she's having to share this information with her sisters, and they're wondering why that was. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. As with the other books that I started in this series, I'm enjoying it, but I'm only 20% in, so we will see how it progresses. I am back with an update. I just got out of the shower and got all dressed. It's a lazy day today. I'm pretty sure it's the Super Bowl, which I could care less about. But I thought I would do a quick update because I am really close to finishing this book, and I wanted to give like an update before I actually finish the book. So I am right now about 69% into this, which I thought was funny, and I remember exactly what percent I am at because it was the first smut scene, so I thought that was funny because I'm 12. She found out that her mother was once the ruler of the Thief Kingdom, and she just got an invite to do these like 3 trials to see who will become the next ruler of the Thief Kingdom, because her father is about to step down from that role and somebody needs to take his place. So she joins in with these trials, which you kind of know. I'm kind of guessing she's gonna win the trials. I mean, that's how these things go. It would shock me if something happened and she didn't become the ruler. It would shock me. That would be a good ending to a book because it would be memorable. However, I just don't think that's where this is going. I think it's going to end very cliche with her winning these trials. But she has to keep the fact that she's in these trials a secret from everybody around her. They can't know that this is happening. So her relationship with Zimri has taken a turn because Zimri got this chance to marry this woman whose family owns a certain percentage of this club that he also owns. It used to belong to his family, and then when he was a child, other people came in and took over. So he wants to own majority shares in this very exclusive club that his family once owned. And in wanting to reclaim his family's dynasty of owning this club, he has to make the choice of either entering into this marriage with this girl, or he can give all that up and he can be with Arabessa. Arabessa, she's a very selfless character. She does everything she can for the people around her to have better lives. And so she's like, I'm not going to stand in your way. I want you to get this dream that you've always had. Plus, she's taking place in these trials, and she really doesn't think that she'll survive them. Because at the end of these trials, only one person is going to be alive to be the ruler. The rest are going to die. So she's like, I really can't commit to being his wife when there's a chance I might not make it out alive. So she ends their relationship, and he goes and he signs a marriage contract with this other woman. Meanwhile, he's just fighting, is this what I really want? They're at a standstill. They just did meet up because they had a moment, and they're like, let's do our one last hurrah, let's have our goodbye sex and all that jazz. And so that is where I have stopped with this story. At this point, it's about a 4-star rating for me. I do like this world, although this book is much more isolated than the other 2 books. This one is also much more like character focused than the other 2. I thought the other 2 had more like strict plots that the characters were going after, whereas this one, it's just more about Zimri and Arabessa's relationship and her doing these trials to become the next ruler of the Thief Kingdom is just like a side story in that. About the only thing that I'm not loving, like I said, is this whole trials situation, because if only one person can survive these trials and our main character is Arabessa, what are the chances she's not going to be the winner? So when I'm reading those scenes, I almost skim read them, because I'm like, what's the point of getting all this like tension and like all this action when you know she's gonna win it? I finally finished Symphony for a Deadly Throne, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is the 3rd in the series, so I don't recommend starting with this one, but I really enjoyed my time with this fantasy romance series. It does lean more toward the fantasy than the romance, but there are romance subplots within each of the books. This one definitely has the most romantic subplot of all 3, in my opinion. They had really good chemistry. I felt it. I felt their heartache when they were going through their turmoils and stuff like that. I would give it about 2 chili peppers worth of steam. I liked the sibling dynamics. Once again, it kind of threw me as to why the love interests of these sisters weren't in this book. They were mentioned a couple times, but they showed up nowhere. And I don't know, it just felt like, you know, you're in this relationship with these people, you're a tight-knit family. I would think that your spouses would be there occasionally, and they just weren't. I like this fantasy world overall. It wasn't too deep of a fantasy. It was really easy to read. I had a good time reading it. If there are going to be further books in this series, I don't think I will read them, because I enjoyed my time with these first 3. I got to know each of the sisters and their storylines, and I'm good where it stopped. So hopefully this is the last book, so I can say, look at me, I completed a series. If you're looking for something a little bit different, like I said, it's a really easy series to read. They are sometimes longer than they need to be, which is another drawback of the series as a whole, but overall, I would recommend them for a fantasy romance reader. That concludes this ARC reading vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed. It wasn't as successful as I was hoping it would be. A couple of them were real duds, but I had to get them read. Mission accomplished. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you want to read any of these books, and if you are still here, could you leave me the violin emoji, because Arabessa does play. Thank you so much for watching, and go read an ARC for me. Bye!